So this is the relocation of the well. Even though the well itself becomes proximal to probably about 25 feet from the tank and pump chamber, it's a more preferred solution because the tank and piping are all supposed to be sealed, and there should not be any release to groundwater from there. So provided that the construction is, takes place according to design requirements, there shouldn't be any impact to the water quality of the well, even though those items are within a certain distance of the well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and then the third option would be to put it in the front yard, but then I'd have to see really where these systems are, because then that pushes me across the street. This one doesn't, because the property line is here, so the other side of the street is here, and the same thing here is over here, so I'm
It's
sure.
also significantly simpler for the plumbing of the home.
Yeah, that's what I explained. Dave is here, he's the owner of the property. Naturally, he was hoping that we could leave that well there and test the well to see if there was any contamination in there now, and then after the system goes in, continue to test the well rather than to go through expensive moving. It's probably gonna cost them about $6,000 or so to put a new well in on the piece of property.
Knowing some of the hydrology of the area, you would not expect there to be any contamination at the existing well, because the cesspool was down gradient, so closer to both the home and the pond, the south of the pond. So you wouldn't expect an up-gradient well to be impacted by the cesspool itself. So I wouldn't anticipate any impacts at this time at the well. Always a good idea to get that tested once a year anyway. If it's the property owner's intention to leave the well, in addition to the testing requirement, it might be worth looking at an advanced treatment type of system to get additional wastewater treatment prior to release to the field. And that was something that we discussed for 6 Judge Street as well.
Yeah. My concern, I didn't know, this lot here, you can see on the map, is basically the same thing, so it's
Yes.
kind of like that. So with this well here, I'm assuming their system's here. I don't know if they even located this well on our property when they put their system here.
And it's possible that that I suppose if there is a septic system at the rear of the abutting property, it would be fairly close to the existing well,
Yeah.
which again would highlight an interest in the property owner for doing that testing regardless.
Yeah.
But like we said, the point kind of stands. If you're going to leave the well there, it may be worth considering a secondary treatment option for the wastewater treatment.
Okay, so if I move the well and I'm more than 50 feet away, he could go with the conventional system, would that be okay? If I put the well...
It's up to the board, but my recommendation would be that is a preferable solution.
Yeah, 'cause since we're not asking for water table reduction or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll look and we can hear from the board, so whatever the board feels, but I think if you want to come up, David, you can, but...
Sure. My name is Dave Olivera,
Yes.
managing member of Divine Properties.
I think that the cost of putting in the alternative system with the technology and then the monitoring that is usually associated with that system, the cost is probably
as well as
gonna
O
be-
and M a lot of
Yeah,
times.
it's probably
Yep.
gonna be more to go that route than to put a new well in, everything over time, so we can weigh it different ways, but if the board is comfortable with us moving the well and going with the conventional system, then that might be the best option for the property, you know, other than, because,
Of course, all I want to do is just leave it there, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the right thing to do to move, then, I mean, tell me what I have to do.
So, Mr. Fry,
Yes.
I'll do whatever testing if necessary, you know, if we could leave it, but,
so are we amending this request and
yeah.
coming back next month? Or what are we doing now?
I'd love to get an answer today. That is one thing, of course. I don't,
But if the well gets left, then you recommend an additional water treatment, right?
Correct. And
So is that
so,
going to offset the cost of moving the well? It's going to be more than moving the well?
putting in the actual components of the additional
what do you say
system
about-
might be comparable to the cost of moving the well. Where you incur the additional expense over time is that most of those secondary treatment systems require a contract with a wastewater treatment provider. So you'd have a private contractor that comes out on an annual basis. And so there's a certain cost associated with that, and it's an annual cost that goes on in perpetuity. So
So
moving
it's
the
better to
well
do that.
is a 30-year solution,
Okay,
whereas,
so it's a loaded upfront cost, but a cost savings over time.
exactly.
You kosher with that? I mean, it's a
Yeah,
$6,000.
I agree with that. And a lot of times we use advanced treatment systems more for like when we have surface waters and stuff, where we're dealing with like nitrogen removal. In this case, we're more concerned with like fecal coliforms and stuff from the septic system
Yeah.
going into the well. You know, like if this was discharged.
But also there's also health-related issues with elevated nitrogen
Sure.
that we would be able to address with the secondary treatment.
Okay, so maybe if we can decide today, like if I redid the system, or not redid the system, but if I redid the plan showing the relocation of the well, if then the board could approve it that way, then he can continue and get his permits.
And what's your distance gonna be if
Well,
you change it?
right now, if I put it here, it's 50. If I put it anywhere else, because of the sheds that are there, you know, I'd have to move the shed, so.
No, if he moves it to where he's located here on this plan, then the variance request
5-0.
would be to the tank, and the variance request to the, I'm not even sure it would require
It would be
It'd
less
be-
than 100.
so it'd be a variance request to the field, but you'd be at about 80 feet.
Yeah.
And you're okay with
These
that?
are 3 feet,
Yeah.
these would be 12 feet off, so yeah.
Standard practice is about, standard practice and what Roger is generally more comfortable with is a minimum of 50 feet.
All right.
so I will move the well then.
We got to get this worded right.
So we will make a motion that pending, that we will change the well so that it will be 80 feet away from the system. You're gonna come up with the new plans,
Yeah.
and you're in agreement with this, and you're in agreement with this. So that's the way the motion will stand.
So are we
We'll grant
granted-
the variance based on the change of the well.
Is it provisional until we see the plans? Is it provisional, or is it absolute?
I believe you could make, because he has the plan here, so you could approve the plan as presented to the board and revised, reflecting a change of variance to reflect
We'll
a
get this
reduc-
worded right. That's what I just
Yeah,
want to get it
to
worded right.
reflect that there's a variance requirement to the tankage
Mhm.
that's on site for the well, and the variance requirement for distance to the field will be approximately 80 feet.
I'll make that motion.
So that means I can move the well, put the septic in right away, and everything happens quickly then?
I'll get the plans done, and I'll submit the plans to the city,
Oh, okay.
but that won't take long to revise the plan.
Do we have to wait for another meeting?
No, I'd
No.
rather get
No.
it done.
No.
Right.
You made a
Okay, thank
motion.
God.
I made a motion.
I second the motion
Okay, go with
to approve it as recommended by
whatever it comes in
Mr.
at.
Fry.
I appreciate that.
Distance to-
Any further discussion?
I think you're better off.
All in favor, say aye.
Everything
Aye.
will be a lot
Opposed?
cleaner
So voted.
if you leave this.
Congratulations.
design as is.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
now I did do one thing out of order. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting to any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We need to, item number 3 is approval of the minutes from the meeting of September 11th. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to be made to the minutes of the meeting as printed?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. We have updates on the statewide vaping situation.
Yes, so that, recently went into effect because of Governor Baker's emergency, public health emergency. So our tobacco control coordinator, who you've met, Seth Baker, has been out enforcing the ban. We haven't had any issues in terms of non-compliance at this point in time. It is a 4-month ban, so it may be extended, but it's going until January 25th, 2020 at this point. It is limited to, the
Flavored.
sale, so you can't have any products in the stores, but that does not include any advertising. So they can still have banners and posters that promote the products, but that wasn't part of the ban. The only other component of that is online sales, so any online retailers are not permitted to sell to or
Massachusetts.
ship to an address in Massachusetts. However, if a retailer is in Massachusetts and they have someone who's purchasing from out of state, then they're able to ship that across state lines. So far, we haven't, again, like I said, had any issues, but we're still out there making sure that people are in compliance.
And what are the repercussions? What's the penalty?
There's a cease and desist order that Seth would issue. After that point in time, the state hasn't provided much guidance on what the fines are or the next steps, but we would have to issue that cease and desist order that has been given to us from the state.
Because I know there was some blowback in Rhode Island that the sellers were going to continue regardless.
Right, yeah. We fortunately haven't had that. Some people in other communities that Seth has monitored had kept their products out until he came to the storefront, but we haven't seen that here, so.
Aren't there stores that just sell that?
There are.
So they're pretty much out of business.
Except for you can sell the tobacco flavored, correct? Just tobacco unflavored.
It's all vape.
All
So it's
vape.
not just,
Oh, I thought it
it's not just flavors. It includes flavors, but it's not limited to flavors only. Mhm.
So it essentially puts some of the
All
stores out of
vaping.
business.
All vaping.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. And there has been one death in Massachusetts.
Correct.
And
That was just recent.
That was 30-something-year-old person.
I don't actually know the details on the individual, but
It was recently a teenager out of state, and then I believe a 60-plus-year-old patient that succumbed in Massachusetts.
and there are new, the DPH has required that providers now report
It's reportable.
any type of
Okay.
kind of pulmonary issue that may be associated with vaping. I haven't been informed of how we'll get that data on a local level, but it is a question that I am trying to answer, whether or not we would be able to track that in terms of how many in Fall River are seeing that.
Have you seen any, Nick?
I just heard of one case up in Norwood, but no direct cases here that I know of.
Being a pulmonologist, you'd be the
Right,
perfect
you'd be first to
person.
know.
Yeah.
And for our next month's meeting, I did invite Marissa Vital from Seven Hills, who works in terms of tobacco control, and she has a vaping presentation. So I thought that it would maybe be beneficial for us to
Oh, very good.
hear from her about, what, even just simply what are all the vaping cartridges and options and how they're marketing to youth and all of that. So she'll be here next month to present.
Yeah, so the latest and greatest is that the CDC is saying that 75% of the cases are associated with THC use, the illicit cartridges.
Right.
But 25% were legitimate from the companies that provided. There's a potential link with vitamin E.
Oh, really?
High doses of vitamin E.
Yes, I saw
It's more
that, yeah.
common in the illicit market
Right.
than the branded market, but still that's something they're looking at as well. Or just thermal injuries to the lung.
Yeah.
The scary thing is, this hasn't been available that long, so these are things that occur
Right.
so quickly.
And it really took the attention of, I believe it was in Ohio, that they started seeing this, and then that raised everybody's attention. So it's probably been happening, we just didn't recognize it.
Yeah, didn't associate it with.
Now
anything.
all attention's on this.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently it isn't difficult for somebody to just YouTube how to,
Change
put,
out the cartridges.
yeah, to insert some other product into a pod. Because there's open systems and closed systems. I know we've briefly talked about this before, but Marissa can get into all that next month. But it isn't difficult to kind of hack a system, unfortunately, if you just look at the right YouTube video.
It amazes me what they put on YouTube for people. How to break into a safe.
Is there any new business to come before the board of such a nature that it could not make the agenda?
No,
Well,
that's the tricky thing with that, is that if we start to discuss the issue that was brought to me yesterday, that we haven't informed the public about that we wouldn't give everyone an equal opportunity to discuss, that we would go down a bit of a
We don't want to do that.
So how do we address that? Like, so it's on the agenda for next month?
So I will include a letter that Ms. Eaton, I've asked Ms. Eaton to submit, and then we can go, we can
Yeah.
address it that way.
Okay.
For the November meeting, we're still going to get November 20th, I think it was?
That's the date I had on my calendar.
If it snows, automatic postponement.
Hope not that early.
I am.
I have.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you.